Walter is back with another news story about the Bureau of Prisons. And if you don't know who Walter is, Walter Pavlo is a journalist he's written some really good articles about the Bureau of Prisons, one of which I've already covered here. So I'm excited to go through this one. We'll see what it's going through. It's kind of a general one about the Bureau of Prisons, and there's a bunch of Bureau of Prisons headlines that hit the news today. So expect a couple quick videos throughout the next couple days. In case you don't know, my name is Santino Pino. I cover Bureau of Prisons and related headlines right here. And then let's jump into what the BOP headline is for today, and that is transforming Bureau of Prisons through technology and leadership. What is this picture right here? So this picture is from April. That's Alice Marie Johnson, who had her sentence commuted by U.S. President Donald Trump after serving 21 years in prison for cocaine trafficking, thanks the press during a celebration of the First Step Act in the East Room of the White House on April 1st, 2019. In Washington, D.C., the First Step Act passed Congress with bipartisan support in December of 2018, with more than 500 inmates released as a result. Trump praised the reform legislation as proof that the United States believes in redemption. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, folks. If you're working for the Bureau of Prisons today, reentry is the mission. Okay? That's how you're going to have a successful BOP career, is understand that reentry is the mission. Housing is not the mission. Housing is part of the mission of reentry. Okay? The primary mission is reentry. It's like when you look at the military, okay? How come they all have planes? How come they all have boats? How come they have everything? Well, in the Army, everything is to serve the infantry. In the Air Force, everything is to serve the ability to command the air. Okay, Navy, everything is designed for our command of the seas. Okay, does that make sense? Right? So everything at the Bureau of Prisons now, its entire mission, everything needs to be in alignment with reentry. Okay. Um, I am a consultant on white collar crime and a former convicted felon. Is that part of this? I I don't know why that line is right there. So I don't know. You just got me to say that out loud though, but I'm not a felon or a consultant on white collar crime. Okay, I don't know why that line is right there. All right, the national conversation about criminal justice reform often gravitates towards controversy, personalities, and political narratives. Lost in the debate is a more consequential story unfolding inside the Bureau of Prisons (BOP), where modernization, leadership, and technology are beginning to reshape how the agency operates. While criticism of past decisions continues to dominate headlines, the operational reality inside the federal prisons demands a different focus. The BOP is undergoing a transformation that reflects both the urgency of long-standing challenges and the opportunity to address them through innovation and strategic leadership. Okay, let's jump into it. A system under pressure. The passage of the First Step Act marked a turning point in how policymakers approach criminal justice reform. It exposed deep structural issues within the BOP, including shortages, outdated infrastructure, and operational inefficiencies that had accumulated over decades. And here's the thing: I know probably BOP staff are reading that, and the first word is "duh," you know. Um, but really, it takes an outside auditor, an outside source to uh, to discover the problem and to be able to address it. Like you don't, the Bureau of Prisons doesn't get its funding from the Bureau of Prisons. The Bureau of Prisons gets its funding from the government. So just being aware of a problem internally doesn't help you solve that problem many times internally. If you need money to do so or other things, you have to go to whoever regulates that cash flow. Those issues have not disappeared. In many respects, they have intensified. Very true. Federal correctional institutions today function as highly complex environments responsible for managing housing, healthcare, security, intelligence, and rehabilitation across large inmate populations. The demands on correctional staff are significant, and the margin for error is often thin. And I do appreciate the fact that Walter Pavlo recognizes how tough that correctional officer job is. It is an extreme job. It is very tough. And many people don't know how extreme and stressful it is because it's just one of those jobs that's just not portrayed on TV a lot. And anytime that you've seen it portrayed on TV, even in reality TV shows where they say they're going into the prison and they go into like an empty prison, they're standing in an empty day room with one inmate having an interview. That's not the reality of prison. I don't think the actual reality of prison has ever been on TV for you to see. I'm going to be real. I don't think it ever has been. I hope it is someday so you can see the reality of what corrections officers are going through. I'm not talking to you directly, Walter. I'm talking to the viewers. Um, so oversight reports in recent years have underscored the seriousness of the situation, citing chronic dysfunction, rising misconduct allegations, and staffing gaps that are in some cases exceed half or required levels. These challenges are not made theoretical. The They directly affect institutional safety, staff morale, and inmate outcomes. And you want to know something like I will always say I'm getting tired. I will never say I'm too tired of this, but I am getting tired of the we don't have enough staff excuse. Okay. That problem has been around long enough. Now, I will fully admit that probably the last 6 or 7 previous directors that they went through in 10 minutes, okay, didn't care about fully staffing. They proved that, okay? But Director Marshall's been there uh, for a year now. Okay, so that's enough time to address the problem. Now, here's the thing: I'm going to give you something as someone that owns a business where I hire people. Okay, especially when you need to hire multiple people for the same position, where you need per se an army, right? That you need to hire on. Okay, in this case, you need a large staff of correctional officers. Okay. Yeah, you need all the other stuff, but if you just have a whole bunch of correctional officers, people that get in there for the job, I remember people applying to be a correctional officer because they wanted to be a case manager someday. They knew they had to get that job to get there someday. Okay. Bureau of Prisons, if you watch any part of this video, okay, if you pay attention to any part of this video, pay attention to this one. You want the selective masses. You don't want everybody. You want the selective masses. Stop trying to be a ninja and get that recruit and that recruit and that recruit. You want the selective masses. You want lots and lots of people applying for that job and getting that job the right way. So don't just focus on hiring, focus on that one metric. What makes a good officer want to get a good person want to get on USA Jobs and apply for that job? And then do that every day forever. And you will have no staffing problems ever again. And I hope you know that now because obviously the Bureau of Prisons has not known that. It's very obvious. Like you can't, there's no proof in the pudding anywhere that that the Bureau of Prisons at any point in the past 10 years has recognized the fact that we need to focus correctly on staffing and hiring. They talk about it, but they've never done it. And even in the past year, they really haven't. There's still staff shortages. A little bit better now, but honestly, the sign of a good staff shortage being eliminated is the elimination of mandates and overtime and augmentation. Okay, that's when you'll be there. You're not there yet. So, role of leadership in driving change. Since his appointment in 2025, Bureau of Prisons Director Marshall has emphasized a clear set of priorities centered on operational reform, accountability, and modernization. His leadership has focused on stabilizing core functions while advancing broader strategy to the agency in line with the realities of modern corrections. And I will say this, I do think, even though I might sound critical in my previous statement, I do think that Director Marshall and Deputy Director Smith are probably the best directors to hit the Bureau of Prisons ever. Okay. Just the fact of what they've been able to accomplish in the past year. And even if you disagree with that, and there's probably an argument for that for people that were long time with the Bureau, they are definitely the best directors that that agency has had in the past 10 years at minimum. Like I think we can all agree on that. There hasn't been a better director in the last 10 years than Director Marshall and his team. The approach reflects an understanding that policy reform alone is insufficient. Real change requires improvements in how institutions operate on a daily basis. That includes better tools for staff, more efficient systems for managing information, and a stronger alignment between security and rehabilitation goals. Forbes, that's an article. This is a kind of a weirdly formatted article, and that's not Walter Pavlo's fault. Okay. Under Marshall's direction, the BOP has accelerated internal assessments and technology initiatives aimed at improving both short-term performance and long-term outcomes. The effort is increasingly described as a multi-phase restoration strategy designed to rebuild confidence in the system while preparing for future changes. Okay, so I'm going to go into business mode outside of XBOP mode for a second and just talk about this statement and what he's talking about. Now, this is not, again, I really like how Walter Pavlo writes. When he writes an article about the Bureau of Prisons, it will be covered here. Okay, Walter, I hope that we get to have coffee or lunch someday. But when it comes to this statement right here, a multi-phase restoration strategy. Okay, if that's the wording that Walter got from the Bureau of Prisons, I can tell you right now, if that wording came from somebody at the Bureau of Prisons, that wording is curated to a point that it really wants to make the people that say we need to get back to, we need to start doing this again. And that's not the solution. There's no backwards thinking because you have to remember a lot of times when people thought of, oh, the Bureau was great when, okay? Well, what was the mission at the time? Was the mission solely focused on reentry? No, it wasn't. This is a recent thing. Every uh, director in the past could say that were a pro reentry. No, I think Director Marshall is probably the first one to focus on reentry because everybody else was focused on recidivism, and they are similar but not the same. Okay, reentry is putting good people out in the world. Recidivism is you worrying about them coming back. Okay. And everybody was worried about recidivism before. Now the idea of just focusing on reentry and doing everything we can make that positive instead of preventive negative is just changing lives. Listen, I got to go down to Tucson recently, and I was at an event where I got to hear some of the reentry stories from the last reentry specialist at FCC Tucson was just absolutely amazing. They just recently retired, and they changed lives. I'm meeting people that they changed their life with reentry, and I see it. You got to remember, I left corrections because the mission changed. I was more of a corrections. Let's house them. Let's prevent recidivism. And when I was no longer like that, my business took off. I left the bureau. Okay, if you're working with the Bureau of Prisons right now, if you want to have a good career, you need to sell out to reentry. I would even go to the point that whoever your reentry specialist is, form a relationship with them. You want to get along with them. Everybody you work with is going to say that they're inmate hate or inmate lovers and they're anti-staff and hate that. Be the shining beacon for them. Okay, be the person that wants to connect with them and understand what they're doing really has zero effect on the prison. They want to make sure that those inmates never come back. Okay, so they don't have that much of an active role per se in the prison because they're setting up those inmates. The only time they're ever going to see their benefit is if they don't come back, right? Be a friend with your reentry specialist. They're one of the most important people in the job right now, and everybody's important, but there are levels of importance, and at the top of that levels of importance are corrections officers and reentry specialists in the Bureau of Prisons right now. Technology as a core component of reform. One of the most important developments within the BOP is the recognition that technology is not optional. Correctional facilities generate vast amounts of data, particularly those authorized inmate communications. Historically, much of this information has been difficult to process efficiently, limiting the ability of investigators to identify threats or emerging risks in real time, while data collection is paramount. Using that data for decision making is even more important. And I'm not going to go too deep into this section real quick. Technology is informing. I'm not exactly a techie guy, but I will say that the Bureau of Prisons should implement some type of AI a system so that they can get through some of that data. That right now the system is very, very manual, which I get the idea of having a system that auto monitors as a problem because you're afraid you might miss something. I think AI can come in and just be a per se second pair of eyes. Okay. because just not every piece of mail is monitored, not every phone call is monitored. But if you get an AI that can do a general monitoring on something, that can flag something you wouldn't normally flag for a real person to see, I think that would be an incredible for data gathering in the Bureau of Prisons. Growing role in private sector innovation, the BOP is not pursuing modernization in isolation. It's working with private sector partners in specializing expertise in data analytics. Okay, so there we go. And look at that. Look at that. I spoke it into existence. A real example of BOP's contract award for AI enhanced translation and transcription services. Okay, that's good. Okay, it provides useful. This company provides useful study and corrections. Leo operates under Elliot Broidy, who has spent a better part of the last decade building public safety and national security technology companies. Broidy is a former Republican National Convention finance chair and has been a well-known figure in business and politics for decades. Okay. That doesn't have too much to do with the Bureau of Prisons. You can look up Elliot on your own. Modernization beyond artificial intelligence. So a lot of AI in here. I love that. Like I said, I don't pre-read these articles before I get in here. So I'm glad that AI is being talked about. The multi-layered approach underscores an important point. Modernization is not about adopting a single solution. It is about building an ecosystem that supports better decision making and at every level of the organization. I love that that word was used because, and we got to thank Apple, yeah, company, the iPhone company, Apple, right? For that because Apple really is what brought the idea of having a system ecosystem, right? Like Apple has the Apple ecosystem. It's really the thing of, hey, if we kind of use all the same or similar technology, we could connect them, right? We would be able to connect it in a way that makes user interface better instead of compartmentalized. And I remember being in the Bureau of Prisons, and you have to type this in this system, you have to type this in this system, you have to do this in this system. And I mean, to date, the Bureau of Prisons, I'm not going to say what system it is, but the Bureau of Prisons has a one of the few government systems that has never been hacked into. Never. I don't think it could be because of how it's set up. But the challenge is that it compartmentalizes it into all these separate systems that you had to know. And from what I've been told, again, I don't even want that information because I don't want to accidentally say it here. But from what I've been told, they've combined some of those or updated some of those. But back when I was, everything was a different system. You had different logins for everything. Okay. And it was based on your facility. It wasn't even like a BOP thing. It was just based on your facility. Very, very localized, very, very compartmentalized. And it's improved since, right? Like, I do understand that now instead of having all these, like, you used to have two different logins just to get into a computer. Now you've got cat cards like the military does. That's awesome. Okay. I said cat cards. I did it. CACs. They're just CACs. They're not cat cards. Donkey Kong's going to get mad at me about that one. That's an inside joke. All right. A balanced perspective on reform. Modernizing the Federal Bureau of Prisons is complex undertaking that will require sustained effort across multiple administrations. Absolutely. And that one's about accountability, rethinking the narrative about progress. Again, these are some great ideas that I will read into myself. But this is that's from Walter right there. So Walter, great article. Really, I'm sorry I just don't have the time to deep dive the entire article, but everything that I read was awesome. Really was. Looking forward to your next one, Walter. Thank you for a great article. And by all means, Walter, if you see this, reach out to me. Would love to connect and just get some thoughts and talk with you. All right, my friend. As always, hey, folks, subscribing, please consider subscribing. Liking and subscribing really helps me out. It really does. It's just a click. Just go ahead and do that for me. Also, if you are BOP and you have any TSP questions, if you're BOP and have any TSP questions, call Santino P. My number will flash on the screen here in a moment, and I hope I do hear from you. But until I do, I'll see you next time. BOP is in the headlines. I will see you next time.